caution. Your paradigm is about to shift at the intersection of fact and reason. You're entering Kingston Country.
I'm Dan Kingston, and you're listening to the Dan Kingston Podcast. Clearview AI facial recognition is based on a dystopian technology, in my opinion, and it's being used today, right now. Over 700 police departments license this technology that can take your image off Twitter or anywhere, even a low-quality image of your face, and use it to identify everything about you. Your full name, your home address, your family members, work history, one day maybe even your genome. Today's guest is Eric Goldman, professor at the Santa Clara University School of Law. Thank you for calling in today, Professor Goldman.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Look, I get a lot of pushback. A lot of people say, look, I'm not a criminal. Why should I even care about this? So my first question to you is, why should law-abiding citizens worry about this kind of technology?
Yeah, it's a fair concern because the technology was marketed as a way of helping law enforcement solve crimes, something that I think all of us would support. And so it's tempting then to think I would only have to worry about this if I'm a criminal. But there's a lot of reasons why that's an incomplete assessment of the situation. And let me just mention a couple.
Yeah, please.
First of all, we've got the fact that we have this database that allegedly Clearview claims has 3 billion images in it.
3 billion?
That database, they claim. We don't actually know.
Okay.
In any case, that database is a honeypot for other malicious actors. They could be state actors and governments. They could be just criminals to go and grab that database and then use it for purposes that have nothing to do with law enforcement and solving crimes. So,
like it could get hacked. Like someone potentially could hack it. Like we don't know the details about their systems, right?
It's almost impossible to imagine that it hasn't been hacked at this point. If it's really that much of an advance on the state of the art, of course everyone's going to want to get it, and they're not going to want to reassemble it. They're just going to grab it from Clearview. Do we think that Clearview has the best information security practices and is airtight against state actor hackers?
Who knows?
That just doesn't seem plausible. The other reason why
not to interrupt, but you talk about the weaponization possibilities are endless. I guess what's the risk if it is hacked? Like, what's the worst that could happen?
Well, there's a professor at Georgetown Law who talked about what he called a database of ruin, that each of us has facts in our lives that if weaponized against us would possibly destroy our lives. And we're only one a bad actor away from having that database of ruin turned against us. So facial recognition technology, and especially the ability to link your face with lots of other images and lots of information about you and the people that you associate with and the people around you, allows for the acceleration of that database of ruin. The possibility then that information will be used to extort you. It will be used to strip privileges away from you. It will be used to take away your job. It will be used to undermine your family or social relationships. It's the weaponization possibilities are endless.
What if somebody's like, look, I'm squeaky clean, Professor. There's nothing they have on me. I use VPN, all this. What's the danger for that? Can you put like a real world example? Because I know in the New York Times, you talk about what if like a rogue law enforcement officer wants to stalk a potential romantic partner or something. Like, is that possible? Could that be the possibility one day, something as concrete as that?
Well, there's no doubt about that. Already law enforcement uses their technological tools for non-law enforcement purposes. Doesn't happen every day. It's not every law enforcement officer, but it happens so regularly that we just know that that's inevitable with every new technological tool. So what are these rogue law enforcement officers doing? Why are they doing that? Are they doing that because they're actually part of a criminal enterprise, because they are under the gun to support a state actor or a criminal organization to turn information over to them? Are they doing it because they are stalking or otherwise misusing using their status as law enforcement to target somebody for a privilege or benefit that they want. That happens all the time. We know that's part of the human condition, and this tool will help that.
Oh, my God. Well, New Jersey, I saw, they stopped police from using it. They barred the technology. I think I saw that. And on Twitter also is asking Clearview to stop using the photos scraped off their platform. Are these concrete steps? Did you see about these steps?
Well, the horse is out of the barn in some ways, assuming that the database already exists and is in Clearview's servers, whatever that means. It's already probably in the hands of some malicious actors. And us taking it back won't change that. And legitimate law enforcement stopping use of the tool won't change that. But I do think that the law enforcement rethinking the use of facial recognition technology is actually a really important step that we have to take here. I think there's a conversation that needs to be had. So I think that's helpful. What Twitter's going to do, trying to stop people from further gathering content from their services, that's great. But what about what's already left?
Yeah, and all the other social media platforms and the fact that can I even stop them? Yeah, they can say don't do it, but they can still take the photos.
Well, I think that Clearview's prospects are kind of dim in the long run. I think that the New York Times article spawned a bunch of efforts that are going to probably lead to that company's demise. Between things that maybe they were engaging in false advertising over claiming, maybe they grabbed photos or other content that they weren't allowed to have, and the possibility that the actual usage of the technology violates existing privacy laws. Everyone's looking at all that now, and all that's coming in for Clearview, and they're probably not going to be prepared for it. Usually these kinds of things end with the end of the company, but they won't change the underlying dynamics of the conversation. So even if Clearview is doomed, we still have to have that conversation.
I see. Well, let's do a hypothetical. And let's say in this hypothetical, they just take off for some reason or another, who knows, and they become huge, even bigger than they are now. And they have this on lock. Will we all be a lot safer and feel a lot safer wearing masks that cover our faces in that scenario?
It's a great question because the underlying question is, what can we do as people, as members of a complex society, to exercise some control over the situation? How can we fight back? And so what you're really describing is a type of self-help remedy. How can we help ourselves to protect our own interests? Masks are one approach, or you may have seen there's been images circulating around where you can put on makeup that is designed to fool the algorithms, just like when you try and do those CAPTCHAs and they have all those letters with all those squiggly lines extraneous information to fool the robots. You can try and fool the algorithms with a face paint. As you may know, there are actually some places where masks are illegal. So we actually have to have a second-order conversation about the legitimacy of masks, because if they're legal, then you can't solve the problem with that type of self-help. You might still be able to use face paint. In Hong Kong, as you may have seen, some of the protesters were using different hair designs to basically distort the way that their face presents. So they were having, for example, a strand of hair come right down the middle of their face to break up the overall face geometry. So, we're only one step away from a place like China saying, and now you can't have your face in your hair. Your hair in your face. Or we're one step away from saying you're allowed to use makeup, but you can't actually use makeup that would fool the algorithms. So we have some underlying civil liberty rights that we have to fight for just to be able to have that kind of self-help.
Well, I tell people about Clearview, my friends, my family, and I've been trying to do a lot of a discussion on this podcast. Why isn't the general public more concerned? My friends, my family, people don't seem concerned about this.
They are my community, so we might be hanging out in different circles.
We are. So how do you get? You're in a law community, maybe, or I'm just around general people, and they're like, "Oh, you're trying to scare me." It's not a big deal. Hopefully, by now, if you're listening, you understand how big of a concern this is. But Professor, what should I say in a quick line that I can say to let someone know, hey, I'm not trying to make you afraid. I just don't want to have this dystopian future that we're talking about.
Yeah, I think there are two ways to do that. You already started with that question at the very beginning of this podcast, which is, I think I'm a law-abiding citizen. Why should I support law enforcement having greater tools to help protect me? And the answer is because law enforcement doesn't use those tools only for that purpose, and therefore, even if you're law-abiding, you still face risk that those tools will be misused against you, will be weaponized against you. The second is because we've seen what's happened in China, where facial recognition is used extensively by the government as a way of suppressing dissidents. It's actually a weaponization of the government against its own citizens as a structural thing, not just an individual rogue law enforcement officer. And so we should be concerned that we, as a citizenry, want to make sure that our government couldn't use this tool to go out and actually suppress us from exercising our rights. That's what's happening today in China, and facial recognition technology is a key part of that. I don't know if you've seen those videos in China where they wear all the masks or bandanas in their face, and they use smoke screens to try and mask the cameras, and literally they have devices to try and counteract or countermeasure the cameras because of the fact that they're so much under surveillance, and that's suppressing their ability to fight for their rights.
Right. But of course, in this country, you'd like to think that the government is good, all intentions, all purposes, at the end of the day. Maybe not all purposes, but at the end of the day, right? They have the best interest in mind for the people. And I guess the question is it at all possible, just to play devil's advocate, could the possible benefits of this technology outweigh the harm? Say to catch a terrorist, to stop a real criminal that had a big, an Epstein or something like that. Like, how do we determine whether the benefits outweigh the harms to this?
That's a really central question because it is possible that facial recognition technology, when used by law enforcement, is a net benefit, even if some of them use it for rogue purposes, even if it has the potential to be weaponized against dissidents. It still might, on net balance, make us a better society. I don't know that. I don't think that's likely to be the case, but I'm open-minded about that. I'm willing to be persuaded otherwise. However, it's a conversation we really ought to have, and it could be that it doesn't have to be a binary thing, either facial recognition yes or facial recognition no. It could be facial recognition under the following circumstances with the following controls and with the following penalties for misuse or abuse. Yeah. So in other words, that's a conversation that we need to have, and we haven't really had it as a society. And because we haven't had it, we actually don't know the answer to your core question. Is it a net benefit or not? Under what situations can it actually be an appropriate technology for government? I will add that facial recognition technology might also be okay in civil contexts and outside the scope of the government. Some people are using it to board Delta planes, for example. I wouldn't personally. I don't really want to do it that way, but you might be okay with that. And so we don't want to suppress facial recognition technology as a class of technology, but we're going to have to come to grips with when we actually think it's okay to use, and if there are differences between private sector usage and the government uses.
Totally, because they've already licensed it to a few private companies. And I guess the concern then is, at what point do they just open the floodgates and they're like, well, if you pass a background check, sure, you can use it too. I don't know. I'm just speculating on what the future could be because they've expressed interest on maybe licensing it to private individuals. Generally, are you optimistic about the role of technology in our everyday lives, or do you see this dystopian future as inevitable?
I'm sorry, I just want to go back. You were mentioning about Clearview might license their technology to third parties. And again, I'm not so worried about Clearview per se because I'm not sure how long they're going to live. But someday, someone is going to make widely available facial recognition technology that is cost effective and highly accurate. And I hope by then we will have had a discussion in our society about when we are okay with that particular development. But it could be around the corner, and that's something I don't think we're ready for today. So we have a lot of hard conversations in our future. But you asked a more general question about, am I confident about the role of technology in general? In fact, I do think that facial recognition technology has its uses and something that we want to continue investing in developing. And more generally, there's no question that technology has made our lives better. You go and watch your dystopian sci-fi movies from the 1960s or 1970s, and you'll see, for example, that they were concerned that humans would run out of food, that we had outgrown the capacity of humans.
Overpopulation. Soylent Green. People, it's made of peoples, right?
Exactly, right. You go back and watch something like Soylent Green, and you'll see that the idea was there's just not enough Earth to cover all the people that are on it, and we can't. And no one really talks about that today. There are definitely problems with our food distribution, but technology has changed so much in the last 40 years with food technology that it has almost made that question irrelevant. And that's such a powerful statement of the power of technology to solve what would look like one of the world's most intractable crises. Similarly, we think about communications technology and how it's connected us and allowed us to have both connections that we could never have formed in an analog world, and it's allowed us to self-express in ways that we never could do before. These are technologies that make our lives demonstrably better on an hour-by-hour, minute-by-minute basis. There's no question that that's a net win for society. But they don't come for free. We do suffer consequences from that. And that's part of what we are constantly balancing. In my world, as a person who thinks about technology, law, and policy, we're always thinking about how do we get the best good stuff from technology and minimize the harms. But we're never getting anything for free. So we're always going to find problems with any technology.
Well, I share your optimism, and also I share your encouragement for the conversation. It's an important one. Thank you so much for your time on the podcast today. Eric Goldman, professor at the Santa Clara University School of Law.
Thank you.
Kingston Country. You've been listening to the Dan Kingston Podcast.
Dan Kingston here. Are you fed up with the mainstream media? Do you want to support citizen journalism? The Dan Kingston Podcast is dedicated to asking questions and exploring topics the mainstream media won't touch. If you enjoy this content, would you help me give you even more for less than $1 a month? Yeah, less than $1 a month. You can help me do just that. And it's as easy as using Apple Pay or any credit card. And by the way, I'll be thanking sponsor names, your name, at the beginning of each podcast episode. So would you consider signing up for less than $1 a month? Find the link to become a sponsor in the description of this podcast episode, or visit anchor.fm/Dan Kingston. Thank you in advance for supporting citizen journalism and helping me provide you with even more content. I really appreciate it.